Thank you. I'm restless. I'm always trying to chase my shadow, and maybe one day I'll catch it. I don't know. We'll see. Well, I love your story. I love your spirit. I love what you're doing. And I'd love to begin our conversation with, 4 years ago, we were wrapping our heads around this pandemic. We had no idea what was going on, where it was going to go. We're out of it. We all survived it. So, how did you survive the pandemic and how did it change you?
So actually, yeah, it actually did in a very unexpected way. I used to be a director of education at Literacy KC on 31st and Troost.
Yeah.
I'd been with them for like 7 years and worked really hard to build up the program. And we were only, so just to your audience to explain, Literacy KC is a nonprofit organization that our students are students who have never gotten their high school diploma, GED, want to get ahead in life. And this is what we're at. We're trying to help them get ahead in life. And so um, we give them classes, literacy classes. We have it's a tough neighborhood, you know, and we have students are not always going there willingly,
Yeah.
because some of them have been, it's dictated by the court or whatever, and we have wide range students. So they weren't really savvy with computer stuff, right? Everything was done in the classroom, and all of a sudden the pandemic hit and it was okay, you got to get online, guys. Well, literally in just a couple of months, me and we got team together, and the best thing about being able to kind of lead something is to get the people that know what they're doing better than you do, which is for me the tech stuff. And we put everybody online. So it was really interesting. We managed to get a lot of contributions from local areas, local organizations to help get a Chromebook in every student's hands. So the students would have Chromebooks, and we started. It was really it was really a miracle, actually, and we did that the whole time. For me personally, what it did, I've always wanted to write full time.
Yeah.
And I was a single mom for a lot of years. I've been alone, I have to kind of pay my own bills. And so being home and being able to get to my laptop easier and not having the travel time, not having the office time, and it really, I don't know, it just really changed things for me.
Yeah.
And when we came out of the pandemic, my son said, "Mom, you've always wanted to do this. You've always wanted to write full time." I mean, I started writing, Joe, when I was like 4 years old, right?
Sure.
I've got my mother's Italian cookbooks, and I had like scribbles in it on the inside covers, because I'd be in the kitchen and the mom and the nanny and everybody would be cooking, and I would be scribbling around here. But it really, and it made me think, and so that's exactly what I did. I actually left my job. It was time to change anyway. They were making some changes. They were under new leadership. So it was just a perfect
Yeah.
time for me to go. So I've been writing ever since. So it's certainly, I'm a lifelong learner, so being able to learn about Zoom, learning how the tech stuff was actually important for me, because I'm sitting here talking to you
Yeah.
on
Proof of
Zoom,
good.
and I actually know what I'm doing. So
Yeah. That's
yeah,
wonderful. So when you were young, let's say in the second or third grade, what did you want to be when you grew up? Was it always education and writing?
it was always writing. I was I had a very, very bad stutter when I was a small child. I mean, really bad. And so I couldn't get the words out,
Yeah.
right? So I remember exactly, that's why when I started writing at 4 years old, or scribbles, it was because I couldn't get the words out. And well, how am I going to do this? Well, then I learned to write, and I realized, oh, I could write a message to someone. I could write words on a page, and someone is going to understand what I'm saying, and they
Yeah.
won't get annoyed with me. They won't yell at me. They won't, get exasperated with me. And so that really did it. I spent a lot of time alone. I didn't have any friends when I was a child because of it. Uh, yeah, it was difficult. My sister was almost 7 years older than I was, so I felt like almost like an only child. My parents were Italian. My mother was an Italian immigrant. My dad, his father, he came over when he was a baby. So it was just a lot of alone time. And what would I do is I would amuse myself,
Yeah.
words,
Yeah.
because the words, and interestingly too, is that, excuse me, Joe,
Oh, you're fine.
not, it's the Midwest Alley. I used to 7 years,
Man,
still not used to the allergy.
pollen and ragweed. Yeah, we got a lot going on right now.
I know. So what it would do to it would, when it came to my writing, it would cause me to think about what word is going to make the most sense in what I want to say in my sentence. All right. So it had me, and I thought about this actually just not too long ago, because someone on another interview asked me like my relation to language. My relation to language is really the idea of exploring it, because what is going to make most sense. So when I write my stories, I'm a very I'm a very slow writer. I mean, there are people out there get books out there here and there, and I can't, because to me, it's each word has to count.
Yeah. You're like a survivalist poet because you have to maximize your weight of words, and it sounds like you had to do it to survive because and this is the reason why I feel what you're saying. My son's on the autism spectrum, and
Mhm.
when he was a child he got speech therapy and I didn't know if he was ever going to talk. Now he's 19 and he talks like crazy, which is wonderful, but I still have hard times understanding him, and I have to interpret a lot for other people that get around him because they don't understand him. So I completely understand how that works and how language happens. And you really have to maximize and
Mhm.
almost economize what you're doing so the outside world understands what you're saying and what you're trying to get across.
Exactly, exactly. And it's exactly it. And I actually write, so I write under my real name and I write under my alter ego, Annie Moon. But the books that I have under my name are a little bit more, they stem from my academic background, they're a little bit more what I consider literary, mainstream. And those books really are, people, some of the reviews I get, especially on my book Paradise, is that they feel that it's almost poetic,
Yeah,
because even today, even though I write fiction, the poetry still comes through a little bit, right? Like
yeah,
in your work, right?
yeah,
Some of your poems were, they don't rhyme. They're almost little, they're segments, little mini pieces of vignettes of something that you're trying to say, which
sure.
is, which is great.
It's fun. Yeah, I've always loved doing it. I always found it to be poor man's therapy. It's a good way of, journaling and getting it out, but you're entertaining and it's fun. And I just recently, I think about 2 years ago, did my first poetry reading. It was up off Independence Avenue. I've gone to Blip Roasters. They have a reading every, oh, what is it? I think it's on Thursdays. But anyways, I love those.
Really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that they had a blip up there.
Well, it's the one that's down in the bottoms. Yeah, it's right down like
Okay.
from Strawberry Hill when you go down.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, so it's fun. Um, but I'm curious, what was the first thing that you wrote that really had an impact on people, or you felt inside, this is my destiny. I should be writing.
So it wasn't what I wrote. It was, I had a very abusive childhood, with my dad, sexually abusive. The trauma was really bad. And again, it forced me to be by myself. It forced me, as I've gotten older, as I've come to terms with the trauma that I had, it was, all right, the way I understood it in my mind was I can rationalize this happened because I had to experience this so I could write about it.
Yeah,
I truly believe deep in my heart, the very core of me is that whoever it is, God or whatever deity created me, gave me a talent for writing so I could share my stories.
yeah,
So my book Paradise now, and interestingly enough, the first line is I came into life stuttering. The last line of the book is I'll never be silenced again, and it is a journey of a past and present of what happened to me, my trauma, and then of course how I came out of it and how I was resilient enough. And it really speaks a lot to the human spirit.
Yeah.
What the human spirit can, how you can transform a trauma into a triumph. And
Yeah.
it really is. And that's where I am. That's where I am today. So if I'd have to pick out any one book, it wasn't my first, but it truly, truly, that book I wrote it 5 years ago. And it truly is, it gives a message of, I would, I'd like to speak about it. I'd like to talk about it. Uh, any chance I get, because it really does give a message of, empowerment for anyone who's been through any type of abuse, any type of trauma. But even my books under Annie Moon, um, which are gay romance, they all have a message. They all have a message, right? It's fun. It's a happy ending at the end of each one, but there's a message of something. So it's always that I believe that no matter what people say about our society, the world, globally, and whatever, there's always room for forgiveness. There's always room for transformation,
Yeah.
right? And I truly believe that. I truly believe that there's no one that is, I mean, some people, yes, they deserve what they get, right? Karma's karma,
Yeah.
right? And
Certainly.
it can kick you in the butt, right?
Mhm.
But having said that, I do believe, especially people who, don't know what they're doing, or even like like my father, he came from an abusive family. So it kind of ran in the family. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Unfortunately, that generational notion of things like that just get passed down, and that's the thing. But there are definitely people on this planet that we see all the time that know better. They
Yes.
definitely.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it took years. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of therapy, a lot of, I mean, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy by the stretch of the imagination because, I made poor choices then,
Right.
but the writing was always there. The writing was always what I really, I say on my website, the writing in the words of the soul and breath of me, and they really are, because they've always been kind of my salvation.
And speaking of salvation, you've had to have good people around you. Who's been a hero or an inspiration that's helped fuel your healing and get to where you're at today?
Real or fictional?
Oh, it can be both. We can open the door wide open to anything.
Okay. You know, this is difficult for me because I've had a lot more people trying to hold me back
Yeah.
than heal. So even in the medical profession, even the health profession, so yeah, it's been difficult. I do though believe, when I look at my history, whenever I've needed someone the most, whether it was a mentor or a therapist or a life coach or someone, I always felt that I was able to reach out and find that person. So I've had a few individual people along the way. And then as far as, I do believe, and I've learned this, back in 2000, The Secret came out, right? The book, The Secret.
Yeah.
That hit me like a ton of bricks, and it made me start realizing I can make my own destiny. I
Yeah.
really don't even need another hero, right? I don't need anyone to, I could really do this. And that just really, it really did change. It upended my life, and that I was able to, and even today I do my affirmations. You know I I've always wanted to be interviewed on about my books, and I'm doing it. There's like little victories along the way that I get. As far as my heroes for writing, they've just been people that I've been, like the Hemingway and like the Steinbecks and Thomas Mann, and people that I've read. And I look around me, and I've got everything from nonfiction to fiction to the autobiography of a yogi. I just kind of, again, it's through language, Joe.
Yeah.
It really is. I just seek out what I need at the time, and I try to emulate the great writers, the great people, the great thinkers. It's kind of so I know it's kind of a wish-washy, watery answer, but like I said, I didn't really have it's for me, it's been very piecemeal.
Yeah, no, that's a very conscientious, well put together answer because I think for a lot of us, sometimes it's not just this one person or it's not some figurehead. It's kind of a collection of what you need to get along your journey. And if you've gone through trauma and heartache, man, it's hard to really rely on a rock. It just is, especially when it comes to, having heartache from your own family. I mean, that right there just shatters things in a very different, specific
Oh,
way.
it does. It does. And, being a single mom because and marrying when I shouldn't have been married because I was queer. I mean,
Yeah.
but again, it was because of that. There's so many years living with my father and, until I was 16. So you have a lot going on there, but I met at work. I do
Yeah.
have sons and they put up with me growing up, and I wasn't the best mom in the world, but I did my best.
Well, I'm sure they're lucky to have you. I'm curious, in the world of books and authors, alive or dead, if you could meet one author and spend some time with them and sit down with them, who would that be?
Virginia Woolf.
Okay.
Virginia Woolf because um she was misunderstood. She had bipolar and no one realized it at the time.
Yeah.
She was in the early 20th century, right? She was born in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. She was a brilliant writer. She wrote, her life, her writing was like her life, was very non-linear, right? A lot of people don't even like her work. But she wrote a book called A Room of One's Own, and it was all about that women can don't need a man to survive.
Yeah.
They don't need a man to make money. They don't need a man to think, we could think by ourselves. So a lot of it, and all my academic studies were also kind of in gender and in women's studies, women's meditations. And I've always been fascinated by madness. So
Yeah.
her whole idea, I mean, she killed herself. She walked into the river Ouse, I think, I don't know how to pronounce it, in England, and
Yeah.
with rocks in her pocket, and she drowned herself.
Yeah.
But what she did the years that she was alive was just incredible. So I do love her. I do love her work.
Yeah. So speaking of all of the works that you've put together and given to the world, what's your favorite fan letter?
I got a review and I printed it. It's actually in back of me on my vision board. I printed it because it was such a beautiful letter. So my book Paradise is an audiobook, and the woman wrote, and she said that the book, she resonated with it because
Yeah.
of the resilience in it, right? And that's my so far that's the most favorite one I got, but any of the reviews I've gotten so far have been over Paradise, and they've all been women who actually have understood it. They understood, they got the empowerment, they came out empowered, and that's a word I hear a lot with that book.
Yeah.
So that's the one. But yeah, a review like I'm pointing kisses in the back of me. A review like that is just stellar. It makes my day, and that is the one. And the ones I get most are for Paradise.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If you have a dream tonight, you ran into the 16-year-old version of you, you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you impart on that young version of you?
Don't wait to come out. As a queer person, really
Yeah.
be authentic. Be
Yeah.
authentic. All right, because no matter what you do in life, you want to be authentic. You want to be who you are. And I'd really, really encourage to find the courage, to find the faith, to find the people around you that can help you to live your authentic self, no matter what it is, who it is.
Yeah.
That would be, if I had done that. Yeah, and 16 actually is interesting you say 16 because it's a very interesting year for me, but that would be the time that I would say, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of do it.
So let me ask you this. Of all of the things that you've overcome and your resilience and everything you've achieved, what are you the proudest of?
Two things. I'm the proudest of my book Paradise because it tells a story and I was able to tell it. Most proud, most proud of myself for surviving when I was in my early 40s. Did you ever hear of Menninger's Clinic?
Yeah,
Used to be in Topeka.
yeah, yeah,
I was there as an inpatient, outpatient for 10 years, for 10 months, not 10
yeah,
years, 10 months.
yeah.
Uh, Out of my ward of eating order patients, I was the only one who survived,
Wow.
the only one who survived. And I'll never forget that experience. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. It was the most, the thing I'm most proud of. And I'm actually surprised when you asked the question, I said that, but it really is.
Wow.
It made me just, again, I've had these moments, these epiphany moments in my life, and that one spread out into months, right? But that just really changed me and kept that light inside,
Yeah,
you know. I mean, after a suicide attempt and wanting to end my life and then realizing, no, I don't want to end
yeah,
my life. There was always that something there.
yeah,
And at that time, my ex-husband was my hero because he actually paid for me to be in that clinic, which was
wow,
at that time the most, it was groundbreaking work they did for people with addictions. So,
yeah,
um, yeah, but yeah, and my book Paradise, if anything, my writing, I'm so, so proud of that book. I'm
yeah,
proud of it because of what it brings to other people.
yeah,
And when I get a review like I did, someone who's been through that, and they said, wow, thank you for writing it. It's like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
want to cry, right?
Yeah. I remember when I got out of college, I was kind of floundering trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So I went to Ozanam and it was off 31st and Wyandotte, I believe it was a group home for girls. And most of the girls, the only way that they got out of it and got out of state custody was to get married and get pregnant, which was heartbreaking.
Right.
But I remember at one point, one of the girls in the house that I just had an affinity for, she was into poetry and I was really trying to help. She got caught going out, she drank, and they thought she had a problem. So she went to AA meetings in Midtown, and it was a gay and lesbian meeting room, and she wanted me to come. So I'm just there as a person, and they're going around, and I didn't say I had a drinking problem. They're like, "Oh, there's the guy." And I'm like, "No, you don't understand. I'm not the guy." But I will tell you this, the stories that I heard in that room, wow. Like I had never heard stories of blackouts, of people relapsing, of being on top of buildings saying, I'm going to fly, and just the stories that I heard. So when you bring up that small vignette of all of these compacted stories of just suffering and dealing with it, wow. I mean, because there was things that at that point I was in my early 20s that I'd never heard or experienced at all. And I was like,
Right.
wow, and I think a lot of those people, probably over half of those people in that room, may not have survived that week, month, or year, you know?
Well, I mean, that's it. That's it. Because, the eating disorder like I had or whatever, or cutting my, or whatever I did, to want to self-destruct, right? It's because of something, right? It's because of what happened to you, and you just, no one, the thing in our society that uh, the mental health society is that women still aren't really, their stories aren't believed all the times, and
Right.
that's so heartbreaking. It's like that girl. It's like no one. People would tell me it didn't really happen to me. So here I am having a flashback where they had a time to restrain me because I was flashing back the whole incident again, and they're telling me no, it didn't happen, or telling me I'm not gay, or it's like, you know, you
That's
know,
terrible. What a terrible feeling.
I still saved my life, but oh my goodness, that's why when and women's stories aren't heard, I mean, people would wish I never wrote Paradise. People, and but I want to write it. I want to tell the story because, like I said, to help. I'm not ashamed of who I am or what I write, or um, I think I turned out pretty damn good.
I would absolutely 100% concur. And I think it's so good that you did it and so cathartic. So this is a natural, perfect segue. Well, before we get to that, I want to know one thing. Everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, fans, everyone around you, but you're in control. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
That's an excellent question. I know I'm a writer. I, I want to say a good person, but I'm a person who wants to help, who uses my writing, my life purpose. Oh gosh, Joe, that's
I
that's got me like tongue-tied here,
I
but
think you've answered it, and that's almost why I wanted to go into saying how can people get paradise. I think you've answered that, and I think that's the interesting part of just this entire interview is that you've answered who you are. I don't think you need to do that right now, and I think your book will further answer that, and that's what I wanted to lead in. If anyone wants to get your book, they're inspired, they want to reach out, they want to learn more about anything else that you've written and done, where's the best place to go?
so all my books, including Paradise, are on Amazon. But if you don't want to, it's also an audiobook. So if you have any Spotify, Hoopla, Libby, you could get it free at the library. In June, I'm doing a promotion. It's going to be free all over the audiobook. So that's the best way to get it. If
Okay.
anyone, please, who wants to reach out to me, uh, get on my website. There's a contact form. Just reach me. You can talk to me about writing. You can ask me a question. I used to teach university, so I love to teach. And help others. I guess yeah, I mean, I've always done that. So yeah, my website is Karen Ann Coccioli. So they can just get on that and reach me through that way.
You're a beautiful spirit, Karen. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for your time. And hopefully we run into each other. Kansas City is a small town sometimes.
I know. Well, now that you told me about the poetry readings, I'll hit one up. I'd love that.
Sounds great. Yeah. Karen, it's been wonderful. Thank you. Best of luck with everything. Keep doing the wonderful work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.